We were the last free generation. No tracking apps, no parents watching, just the street, a scraped knee, and the rule, be home before dark. If you weren't there, you have no idea what real freedom tastes like. We were the last generation to own the streets, a kingdom of tarmac and cobbles that belonged only to us. The front door opened in the morning and didn't close again until the street lights hummed into life. Breakfast was a slice of toast eaten standing up before rushing out to meet the day's adventure. There were no mobile phones to track us, just a mother's shout echoing down the terrace row at tea time. Short trousers were a badge of youth, exposing knees that were perpetually scabbed and scraped. Woolen socks were forever falling down around our ankles, no matter how tight the elastic seemed. A stick found in the woods wasn't just wood. It was a sword, a rifle, or a wizard's staff. We played Conkers in the autumn, hardening chestnuts in vinegar and stringing them on old shoelaces. Knuckles rapped against the pavement during intense games of marbles, aiming for that prize glass alley. Skipping rope slapped the concrete rhythmically, accompanied by chants that every girl seemed to know by heart. Hopscotch grids were chalked onto the pavement, fading only when the rain washed the numbers away. Two jumpers on the ground made a goalpost, and arguments about whether the ball went over lasted for hours. The leather football was heavy and laced, leaving a red mark on your forehead if you dared to head it wet. Bicycles were heavy steel beasts with rust on the handlebars, freedom machines that could take you 3 towns away. We put playing cards in the spokes with a clothes peg to make them sound like motorbikes as we pedaled. Soapbox carts were built from pram wheels and planks, rattling downhill with no brakes and pure adrenaline. Trees were meant for climbing, the higher the better, surveying the world from a throne of oak branches. Dens were built in the hedgerows or bomb sites, secret clubs where adults were strictly forbidden. A magnifying glass and a sunny day were a science experiment, usually involving dry leaves or ants. Pocket money was a sixpence or a shilling, clutched tightly in a sweaty palm on the way to the sweet shop. The sweet shop was a wonderland of glass jars, filled with sherbet lemons, pear drops, and licorice. A quarter of sweets was weighed out on brass scales and poured into a white paper bag that rustled with promise. Comics like the Beano or the Dandy were currency, swapped and reread until the pages fell apart. Saturday morning pictures meant a stampede of noise, cheering for the cowboys and booing the villains. School milk came in small glass bottles, often warm from sitting near the radiator, pierced with a paper straw. Inkwells sat in holes in wooden desks, ready to stain fingers and blotters in shades of permanent blue. The scratch of a dip pen on paper was the sound of learning, punctuated by the teacher's sharp command. The blackboard rubber created clouds of chalk dust that danced in the shafts of sunlight coming through high windows. Playground games were rough and tumble, British bulldog leaving us breathless and bruised but laughing. School dinners were thick gravy, lumpy custard, and spotted dick, served by ladies in white tabards. There was no central heating in the classrooms, just a big iron radiator that everyone huddled around in winter. Walking to school was non-negotiable, rain or shine, trudging through puddles in rubber Wellington. In winter, we made slides on the icy pavements, polishing a long strip of frost with our leather soles. Snowballs were packed hard and thrown with precision, barricades built from the drift against the garden wall. Gloves were attached to a string through your coat sleeves so you wouldn't lose them, making us look like puppets. Guy Fawkes Night was a community event, building a bonfire for weeks from old furniture and garden waste. The treacle toffee was hard enough to pull your teeth out, and sparklers wrote glowing names in the dark air. Christmas meant a pillowcase at the end of the bed, feeling the weight of an orange and a few small boxes in the dark. Toys were made of tin and wood, clockwork cars that whirred across the carpet until the spring wound down. Meccano sets taught us engineering with tiny nuts and bolts that disappeared into the rug forever. Dinky cars were lined up in traffic jams across the linoleum, driven by imagination and engine noises we made ourselves. Dolls' houses had tiny furniture and stiff, unmoving families who lived perfect, silent lives. Board games like Ludo and Snakes and Ladders were played by firelight when the rain lashed against the window. There was only one television channel, and when the transmission ended, the white dot faded into silence. Radio was king, and we listened to thrillers in the dark, picturing the monsters more vividly than any screen could show. Sunday meant best clothes, scratchy collars, and polished shoes that pinched your toes. Sunday school stamps were collected in a book, a colourful record of attendance and Bible story. Tea time on Sunday was tinned salmon and bread and butter, watching the clock tick slowly towards a Monday morning. Bath night was once a week, often in a tin tub before the fire or sharing the water to save on heating. Pyjamas were striped flannel, warmed on the fireguard before you made the dash to the cold upstairs bedroom. Hot water bottles were soft, rubbery companions in beds piled high with heavy woolen blankets. Frost-formed ferns on the inside of the bedroom window scraped away with a fingernail to see the morning. We collected things, stamps, train numbers, bird eggs, pressing flowers between the pages of heavy books. Fishing with a net in the canal for sticklebacks was a serious expedition, requiring patience and silence. The rag and bone man's call was a ghostly trumpet, his horse clopping slowly past looking for old iron. We knew our neighbours, not just by name, but by the sound of their voice and the smell of their cooking. Doors were often left unlocked, a level of trust that seems like a fairy tale in the modern world. If you misbehaved 3 streets away, your mother knew about it before you even got home. Scuffed shoes were polished on Sunday night, the smell of wax polish marking the end of the weekend freedom. We didn't have much, but we didn't know we were poor because everyone else had exactly the same. Imagination was our best toy, turning a cardboard box into a castle, a spaceship, or a submarine. Boredom was just the waiting room for the next idea, not something to be cured by a screen. We learned to negotiate, to fight, to make up, and to lead, all without a single adult intervening. The scars on our knees were trophies of a life lived at full speed, running towards the horizon. Looking back, those endless summer evenings seem bathed in a golden light that never really sets. It was a harder time in many ways, but it was a time when a child's world was truly their own. We grew up, the streets changed, and the games stopped, but the memory of that freedom remained. It was the golden age of the unsupervised, the unwashed, and the undeniably happy British childhood.